The Timberlane Regional School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there's no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the board at timberlane.net/Zoom TRSB. If anybody has a problem, please call 382-6541, extension 3955. Please note all votes taken during the meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Kat.
Brian Boyle.
I'm here. I'm alone in the room. There are other family members in the household.
Lee Doobie.
I am here, and there are other members of the family present in the room.
Kim Farah.
I'm here. I'm alone in the house.
Barbara Kishka.
I'm present. I also have my husband in the room with me.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here, alone in the house.
Sarah Mackemar.
I'm here. I'm alone in the room. There are other members of my family in the house.
Sean O'Neill.
I'm here, alone in the room, and there's other members of the household.
Kristen Savage.
I'm here alone in the room with other members of my household present in the house.
Jennifer Silva.
I am here alone in the room and other family members are in the home.
Dr. Cochran.
I'm present. I'm alone in the room. There's another school board member, or another family member in the house. Probably okay.
Okay. Excuse me?
I was saying school board is family at this point.
Yeah. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Lee, can you start us off?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on to the minutes, there are, oh shoot, where's my notes? 2 sets of minutes. Hang on one second. We'll start with the non-public 2/18/21. These were not sealed. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
So moved.
In one that I have already fixed and sent to Kathy yesterday relative to the words COVID versus COVID.
Say that again, Kat.
There was a typo in the 2/18 minutes. Said COVID versus COVID was the way it was written. So I did correct that.
That's the next one. That's the public one.
Yeah, that's a public. We're in the non-public. So Jen made the motion, Sheila second. I guess.
I didn't, but I will. I'll make the motion.
It was
That
Barbara.
was me.
Oh, it was Barbara. Okay, Barbara made, I couldn't tell. I wasn't watching the little light ups. Barbara made the motion, Sheila second.
Yes.
Kat, can you take a roll call, please?
Mr. Boyle.
Yes.
Mr. Doobie.
Abstain?
Dr. Farah.
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka.
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's.
Yes.
Mrs. Mackemar.
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill.
Yes.
Mrs. Savage.
Abstain.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the 2/18 public minutes.
Motion to approve the 2/18 public minutes.
Sheila makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
9 seconds. Discussion? Kat, can you take the roll call, please?
Mr. Boyle.
Yes.
Mr. Doobie.
Abstain?
Dr. Farah.
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka.
Sorry, yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Muckmer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Abstain.
Mrs. Silva,
Yes, sorry, muted.
Okay, sorry, moving on. Jenna Horn is completing her role as the student representative. Board members, we did send her a gift. I think everybody was noticed of that. We thank her for her service. We will be getting a new student representative. I don't know if she'll be at the next meeting but definitely the meeting after that. So moving on to delegates and individuals, I was told that we have one delegate and individual, Coral Hampy. If you want to come on and unmute, I'm just going to plug my. Go ahead, if you could just state your name and your town, please.
Good evening. Coral Hampy, Danville, TTA President. As president, I represent about 300 staff members with various points of view. There's one thing we all agree on, and that is having students in the classrooms is the best way to educate them. But as we have been saying for the last year, it needs to be done safely. Representatives from TTA, TSSU, the district, and lawyers have been meeting since June to discuss the safety issues like PPE, cleaning, and how bad the HVAC systems are. Then last week, Train delivered their report about the HVAC systems in our districts, and you seem flabbergasted. Now, I'm not saying we don't want the kids back. What I'm saying is, we told you so. We have been telling you for a year how these systems have not worked well and how it affects our health. I was incredulous listening to your reactions from the report as if you've never heard this information before. Let me remind you, this was one of the biggest issues facing us for any return to school. The MOU, written over the summer and signed in September, states, TRSD will take all reasonable steps to ensure that the HVAC system and air circulation requirements conform to the recommendations of the CDC and ASHRAE before students arrive back at school. Specifically, the district will take the following steps to maximize indoor air quality to reduce occupant exposure to infectious aerosols. Steps like hire an independent HVAC consultant to assess current HVAC systems. We did with the Lawson report in September. Provide fresh air to the school buildings to the greatest extent possible with the current system. Improve filtration in current HVAC systems to the highest level the system will allow to run efficiently. And add new clean air technology, e.g. air purifiers, etc., where necessary. As a note, I am on an inside classroom in the middle school. I have no windows, no air purifiers. Then we were told in an email, use of at least Merv 13 rated filters is recommended if it does not adversely impact system operation. Therefore, following ASHRAE guidance, using a Merv 13 filter would negatively impact the most important factor, airflow. We will use a filter that allows us to maximize fresh airflow and therefore safety. Interestingly, the first recommendation from Train is to replace filters to Merv 13. The installation of Merv 13 filters in all air handling units that recirculate air. All this to be done before students return to school. Now that we know that the HVAC systems don't work as well as they should, we are pushing forward with bringing all kids to school 5 days a week and losing the deep cleaning day between cohorts. Really? More kids, less cleaning. It will be impossible for the custodians to clean every classroom every night. It will completely overburden them. Sure, our statistics show we have been pretty lucky this year. But does that mean that we have to push our luck 5 days a week? Thank you. Good night.
I'd actually like to make a comment. I understand this point that, yeah, it's mud on our face about this whole Train report. But I would say that if we replace this entire district with new HVAC systems, there's going to be another new issue why we can't get back into here. And that's, I'm going to go on the record and I'm going to say that, yeah, that's how I feel. This is just an excuse. And even if we correct this as a board, there's going to be another reasoning why we can't come back by the same people that are sitting here putting a pitchfork in here and saying, see, told you so. So please discuss that amongst your colleagues there, Ms. Hampy.
Okay, is my mic still on? Could I give just a quick statement? I would like to say that I said nothing about us not going back to school. I said, we've been telling you over the years that these have been affecting health. We've had people retire or resign because of it. It could have been done. And now you get a report that says they're bad. That's what I'm saying.
And I stand behind my statement. There will be another reason.
Okay. And I'm going to let the facilities director answer these questions. I did ask him to be here this evening. Just as a short reiteration or a response to your statements, the district has now spent close to $200,000 on hiring HVAC consultants and workers to come in to look at these systems. We have opened up as much fresh air as we can. MERV 13 filters are ASHRAE recommended when there's recirculated air. The majority of our systems in all these buildings do not recirculate air. They're pulling in external air. So I just want to make that point out. We have improved filtration. We've kept air handling units running. I'm going to let Mr. Paradis, as the facilities director, to speak to more specifics, but we are continuing and we are diligently working to try to get our air quality improved. And this board, I think more than any others over the last 10 years, has really stepped up the efforts to try to get facilities in general improved for staff and for students. So I do appreciate your concerns. I certainly do. I teach myself. We are working on it and we will continue to work on it. Unfortunately, the speed at which we can progress is hampered by many factors. So, Mr. Paradis, could you please speak to the train report and what actions are currently going on right now to improve the air quality within our buildings as we move forward?
Thank you. So the train report does state that there are several deficiencies throughout the district. We have changed filters monthly since July. That has been done rigorously. We've also been told to hold off on changing filters until in November, until Train came in to do their air quality assessment, not the assessment of the units, but the air exchange rates. So we held off on that. When they came in to start that, we would replacing them building by building as they went through them. We have been addressing issues throughout the train report. What we've been doing is looking through the train report and saying, okay, what do we see as an emergency? And that's what we've been addressing. To date, we have done, I think, about 20 different units we've worked on, some minor, some we found that belts didn't need to be replaced. The units are all functioning the way they should, to the best of their ability. As for the MERV 13 filters, we take in outside air 100%. The only thing that is recirculating is the SAU building. Those are residential units that recirculate the air. Those have MERV 11 filters in them now because that was recommended at the time. MERV 13, we are ordered those and we're waiting on those to come in. But rest assured that the units that are throughout the district are functioning. It's not to the fact that these units are not working. They are. And you'll see when the air exchange rate comes out for the next evaluation here from Train, you'll see that they are functioning. Any questions?
Go ahead, Barbara.
So, but there is room for improvement. I mean, we do plan to adjust
So
things and make them work better than they do.
Well, that is supposed to be the recommendation of Train, to see where they recommend, either replacing or what we could do to improve the airflow. But I'm waiting for that second report to come in to see what units they recommend replacing.
Isn't the next report just going to be on air exchanges within classrooms? Are you telling me that they're also going to report on which units should be, which are priority for replacement?
Well, that was part of the RFP that had went out, yes.
So you're anticipating they're going to come in with another report?
I'm anticipating that the second report that I'm waiting for is the exchange rate report. That's what I'm waiting on.
But are you telling me that the exchange rate report is going to tell you which units need to be replaced?
So I will let Mark speak to that. He's been in touch with Train about that. Train has not reached out to me. I reached out to Train, but I was unable to speak with them. So if Mark, I thought I saw Mark on here. He may have.
He had to pop off for another call.
Oh,
He'll be back on, but Brian has a question. Brian Boyle.
Okay.
Gary, specifically on the Train report, there were, I believe there's 190 units in the district.
It was 175, 74 or 75 units, but some of those have 2 motors in them, 2 sets of belts, things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that's
And then
how
we
it got up to.
So I will say this, Brian,
Well, maybe
some of
that's how it
those,
got up to
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that Brian was understanding that even maybe some of these units, maybe there were 2 units within one. That's how it got up to the number I heard of approximately 190.
Well, you are correct on that. The second thing is, some of these units have been abandoned when they built additions. So we had, we'll say, a unit heater in the doorway, especially like in the high school and middle school, that at the end of the building, when it was the original building, there may have been a unit in the ceiling, and they put in a wall cabinet instead, or they just didn't put any more heat because you didn't need it, because the building was continuing and it wasn't outside. So some of those units that you'll see in that Train report are no longer in service.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I guess, but so it didn't. My question is on some of these units. It talks about wear and tear on belts, and so you obviously this is your job. So I assume some of these units are still functioning, but they're just recommending to replace belts, or
That is our indication on this. Yes, they're recommending replacing the belts, but we've been to several units, and the belts, in our opinion, still have life left to them. But we've been replacing them anyway, and we've been keeping the ones that we have to, if we need to relook at what they're saying on that Train report to say, hey, this belt needs to be replaced. Well, we're going to say, okay, we replaced it, and the unit's still functioning the way it should. So what happened?
well, I guess that's I guess from a school board standpoint, Gary, that's kind of what we're asking. You are our facilities director, and when you read a report like that, I guess it's more of a headline type thing. We don't have the how serious it really is, because I believe you that basically this, obviously Timberlane is still functioning, so I don't want people thinking that there's no HVAC in our buildings. That's crazy.
There is, and these units are functioning. They're functioning to the best of their ability. Are they old units? Yes, they are, but they're still running. They're still functioning. They're still doing what I believe to be a good job.
So you're saying these units are functioning to the best of their ability, and they're in top condition, is it for what they are?
That is correct.
So does that mean that the Train report is not accurate?
I'm not saying that it's not completely accurate. No, what I'm saying is we're going through it piece by piece. And, we started at the middle school, we replaced some heat exchangers. We've been to Danville to replace some motors. Yes, those are true. Those needed to be done. Those were motors were on exhaust fans for bathrooms, or 2 of them were for a science room that hasn't been functioning for, I don't know. I don't even think they use the science classrooms down at the middle school anymore. So we are going through this train report piece by piece to see what we are finding as opposed to what train is finding.
Okay, can I ask another question, Jen Silva? This is for you, so you can laugh. I used to run a motor pool with 50 vehicles and 80 generators, and we had a preventative maintenance schedule. Could you tell me what the PM schedule is for your air handling units?
Are you, I'm sorry, you said Jen, are you, you're talking to me?
No,
Yes.
I'm talking to you,
So
Gary.
we have
Giving me
in
a
our
good laugh.
in our school, dude, we have preventive maintenance work orders that are automatically generated, whether it's 6 months or whether it's quarterly. And those get done, whatever it comes up as. Say, unit 1 at the high school needs preventive maintenance. Our technician goes out, he'll look at the unit, assess it. If it needs anything, he addresses it then. Same thing with, unit 2, unit 3, whatever that PM comes up at. Usually it's a PM for the entire high school. It'll just be a blanket preventive maintenance. We did before COVID quarterly filter replacements, and that is also a PM. But like I said, in July, we went to every month because we were changing them every month, because at that point, as it was mentioned earlier, Merv 13s were recommended, but after lengthy discussion, they thought it was redundant to put in Merv 13 filters if we're just filtering outside air. They recommend they recommend it for recirculation air, not for.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim.
So all this preventative maintenance is in school, dude. And the reason I ask is somebody made a right to know request and the board requested this information. We have a 10-page document. Is that document from School Dude? And is that all the preventative maintenance that's been done over the last 14 months? What document is that?
So that is from School Dude, and that is anything that was related to HVAC. Sometimes, and we are implementing, we're working with School Dude now to get our units into School Dude. So if we do maintenance on it, we can just log it right in. We didn't have that option before. Myself and 2 other individuals are actually taking a course with School Dude so we can better work through that system.
So what were you using to track your preventative maintenance?
So you'll see on those ones that are listed, that 10-page document, it will say preventive maintenance. And then the notes, there should be notes on there. If they're not, he goes up and he sees what the unit looking for. And if something's there, he'll say, replace the bearing or replace the belt. If nothing is needed, there's no notes there.
Barbara?
So it just seemed strange to me that the PM for November 18th, it looks like just about every school, the PM for every school was done on one day, and again on February 9th.
So he may do all that preventive maintenance, and I can't speak to when he closes out a work order, but generally he'll probably do his preventive maintenance and then close everything out at one time.
But this report says actual completion date on it.
I don't have that document in front of me, but I will pull it up if you'd like. Hold on.
Well, this is from School Dude, so.
Right.
And were those monthly maintenances or were those quarterly? I think it said monthly in the report, but they appear to be being done quarterly.
I'm trying to pull up that document. Give me a second.
I guess we don't need.
Pulling that up. I just want to make a comment. Like when Kim was making me laugh, it was at Kim's expense, not anybody else's.
Yes, I'm sorry. That wasn't at my expense.
Yeah.
Sheila,
otherwise.
Go ahead.
Sheila, you're muted.
My question is about the units that are no longer in service. How many of those do we have sitting on our roofs?
It wouldn't be the ones on the roofs. It would be the ones that are in the ceilings where they put the additions in.
Okay, but do we have any right now?
We may have a few exhaust fans that are on the roof that may not be functioning. And like I said, because of the middle school no longer uses vent hoods in their science rooms, so those are probably gone. That's probably what's referred to, and if you see it in the report from Train,
Okay.
a lot of those are the pen ventilators or the green heck units. Those are your ventilators for the, I'm sorry, sure. See
No,
one
it's-
assist.
I'm just trying to get clarification. We put in a new unit in the middle school very recently, within the
We put in,
last year.
yeah, we put in two that are in the, over the gym, correct.
Okay, so were the old ones removed, is what
Yes,
I'm
they were.
asking?
Yes,
Because
they were.
that's, I'm a little worried about, dead equipment sitting up on our roofs.
No,
Well,
they
I
were
gotta make
removed.
sure.
They were
Okay.
removed and the new units were put in that same spot.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Barbara?
So on the Lawson and Train reports for the air circulation, were either of those 100%? And if not, what percent of the classrooms were sampled?
So the Lawson group did 10 random rooms in each building. And this next report will have every room in every building.
Well, that should be out next week. And board members, in your packet, you have an executive summary, and I'm just going, because there are quite a few people on here, I'm going to just run down it pretty quickly. Because Mark Fournier, the facilities or the HVAC consultant that we hired, or our facilities consultant, not HVAC, has been working to look at an equipment assessment and evaluation. So what's going to be happening now is there's going to be a list of written maintenance and repair work that was cited by the Train report. That list is going to be now started to be worked on, building by building. Clearly, the high school probably is the most, crowded building. That way they can stage equipment in one area instead of moving around. It doesn't make sense to do one building and then hop over to another. The Train report's going to be taken around while they're doing this. They're going to list on the report next to the unit what was done on it, what name, who performed the work, what work was performed, pictures, and they're going to tag, label, and store any parts that were removed from this. Once that's done, that paperwork's going to go back to the facilities so that it can be input into School Dude. That work is then going to be used to help build a comprehensive database for the work management system. And that's going to allow them to track the work on the systems and also use the data to help us in our capital improvement planning process. We're working to obtain with IT to obtain an iPad for the technicians so that when they're out in the field, they can actually input the work information directly that will feed it back into School Dude. As we start to work through this, they're going to develop a list of buildings that they feel they can complete with in-house resources in a reasonable amount of time. We are going out, we are not looking to waive bid policy tonight. What we're looking to do is there's a draft request for a proposal for HVAC equipment maintenance and repair services that will be going out to local contractors. And if there's work that we feel can't be performed in a timely manner here, we're going to contract some of that out. That's all based on what's happening here. And I think that's pretty much it. And, as Mr. Paradis said, some of the filters were dirty at the time of the Train report because they were waiting to replace them until Train came, and that got delayed because of COVID or whatever. So I did want to point that out. And all the air exchange testing has been done, and there should be a report coming out the week of March 8th. Barbara? Then Brian?
So how much work do you think we can get done by March 22nd? How much high priority work? Because that's when the kids come back 5 days, right?
That's the middle school is back.
Right.
I can't answer that. Mr. Paradis?
So all I can say to that, Barbara, is we're working as fast as we can on these units. We're assessing that train report and saying, okay, this is a high priority. Let's do this one. We're trying to go and stay in one building for timely purposes so we can get everything done, but we'll hit that one building. I think Danville is almost complete. He's been working on that since the train report came out. So we're going to be headed to the next building after that.
Could I request we do Pollard because that's the one that's going to have 4-foot distancing?
I believe Pollard, we've done some already. We did that even before the train report came out. So we're going to be adding that to our log. But yeah, I can hit Pollard next if you'd like.
If that's okay with the rest of the board.
That'll be 4-foot distancing, not 6. Is that right?
That's what it looks like, yes. So that would make sense to do that one, make that the priority.
Okay.
And I had one nice thing to say, which is thank you to everybody for getting your documents in at least a day ahead of time. So we had time to look them over. I think there was like only 1 or 2 small documents that didn't make it until today.
Okay, great. Brian, did you have a question? Boyle?
Yeah, I just have a question for Gary. Gary, when train came in, were you, did you accompany them when they were doing their testing?
For the air exchange?
Anything they did?
So so when train came in, I introduced myself to Eric, one of the lead guys that was assessing the equipment. I did go from building to building. I made sure that I was with him for, at least an hour and a half to 2 hours. I do have other things going on in the district. So, but I did make sure that I was there. If they needed anything to observe, things like that, yes, I was there.
Well, I guess I just want to make sure that as you're doing your evaluation, if you will, and corrections, that you completely understand what their concern is. And so
I do. I do, and that's what we're looking at.
Yep.
I did also go around with train when they did their air quality testing. I was with them for every building, again, for a number of hours. So I made sure I was there for that.
Any other questions before we move on? Dr. Cochran?
Yes, Mr. Fournier also reached out to a colleague to get a response with the recent CDC guidance about opening windows, and he was able to forward that to the SAU office. Essentially, it gets back to the issue of all of the schools have 100% fresh air and filtered, and that in a case where the school has that type of airflow, it's probably not beneficial to crack open windows, because what you're doing is you're bringing in unfiltered air as opposed to 100% filtered air. So in general, and Mark, you can speak to this if you'd like, it's potentially bringing in fresh air that's not filtered, could contain dirt, pollen, humidity. It increases the heating load because it's coming in unheated as opposed to through the ventilation system, and it changes the dynamic and potentially some of the balance of the system. So in general, it's not advised, but there may be situations where it will help. So that's what we have at this point in time. Mark, did you have anything further to add?
No. Good evening. Hi, you guys. Not really. I mean, that's the basic crux of the situation. If there were a bunch of positives we were going to add by opening the windows, then, we'd recommend doing that. But based on my discussions with some peers in the industry, it's really not a good idea. I mean, you're going to, just what you said, you're going to bring in dirt, you're going to bring in pollen, you're going to bring in unconditioned air. And we're going to, if it's colder outside than inside, we're going to increase our heat load, and it's going to affect the balance of the system. So that's basically the answer to that question.
Okay. Any other questions on this part? This is part of so there's not going to be any action. We are not looking to waive bid policy. We are going to try to see what we are going to put an RFQ out to see if we can get some additional labor in here to help as they see fit. So board members, as I said, there's a summary in your packet of all the actions. I think you'll see they're pretty substantive. Okay, Mr. Fournier, I think we're all set with you. Thank you for coming. Well, one other thing before we leave, I'm moving down the agenda. This is on Sea Power contract. We have entered into and Barbara's smiling, this is the Energy Committee, has entered into an agreement with I don't know, Mark, maybe you can explain it, Sea Power, which basically we're a heavy user of electricity. So what happens is they contract with heavy users of electricity to lighten their load during peak times. This way you don't have to build a new power plant. You just tell people to power down, and the district will get a cut of the revenue for this. So we will gain money from this by helping utilities offset during peak times. They're going to come in and they'll put in their own metering. And this will also be useful to see what our energy usage is. And it's a win for the district. There's no cost to the district. Mark, did you want to add anything?
No, and Sea Power's role is to help us coordinate that with the utility, and they take a small percentage for that service, but it's a really good deal. I did a lot of research with another user that uses them. I talked to Unitil. They highly recommended Sea Power. I talked with Sea Power a number of times, and everything basically said that this was a really good idea. It's not going to cost us any money, and we can get some revenue. And we do the right thing too by helping the utilities reduce their demand and not have to build new plants.
Mm-hmm. Barbara?
So just a real quick explanation of what this looks like. So the peak demand, for example, in summer is on like an afternoon in July when everybody's running their air conditioners. In July in the afternoon, we don't have any people in school. So it's no big deal to us to power things back. And then we get a check for doing that. They give us like 30 minutes notice, and then we have to power down for 2 hours or reduce our power for 2 hours, I think is the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an easy win, and we get checks.
And then just while Mr. Fournier is here, there's also on-site energy efficiency audits have been completed in all the buildings. And those are being reviewed now to see what we should be looking at to do. And we'll probably have a proposal ready sometime in April. So that's all, and that's all part of the work of the Energy Committee also. So I think that's it on energy.
Yeah, and basically what we're going to do with those reports is, so we've done a lot of work in-house, kudos to Steve Paradis for doing that work in the past. And what we did was we went out to Rise Energy, who works with New Hampshire Saves and the utilities, to find out what it would cost for them to do some of the work if we wanted to reduce the timeline to get the more buildings done in a shorter period of time. Obviously, it would cost us more than having Steve do it because, we use his in-house labor to do it in-house, and obviously they've got to do it with their labor. But we wanted to see what the numbers look like in case we wanted to contract for some of those services on some of the schools. So we'll have that information for you, the comparative analysis for you at next month's meeting, and we'll be working with the Energy Committee on those.
Okay, thank you. Barbara, go ahead.
So a real quick synopsis, most of the energy, the energy is focused on LED conversion. We've already converted our outdoor LED lights and the cafeteria and library in the middle school and high school. So we're already saving money there. This next batch is converting all of the classroom lights to LEDs. And it looks like we're going to save about $10,000 a year per school, at least in electricity charges. The payback period for buying all these LED lights is going to be about 2 years if we have the outside contractor do it, and about 1 year if we do it ourselves. So this is all good stuff.
Right. And it's actually all the lighting in the building. So it goes from, mechanical rooms to classrooms to offices. So the buildings will basically be relamped. And at some point, down the road, we'll start looking at circulator pumps and heating systems and some other opportunities to save more power and reap some of those incentives, because there's some pretty good incentives for that kind of equipment too. And some of those new pumps that use what are called ECM motors, electrically commutated motors, they save 85% of the electricity that's currently being used on those circulator pumps. So the payback on those is really short.
Great. All right, thanks. So moving on to the rest of the reopening update, Mark, I think we're all set. If you
Great.
want to go
Thank
back
you.
to your other meeting.
Great.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks. Great to see you guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Take care. See ya.
The other things on the reopening update, and maybe Mrs. Larry present but remote. And I know Mr. Pedersen, you're doing a great job on the COVID numbers. Unless board members have specific questions, we will just, you can look at your packets for that. So present but remote is.
Yes, Mr. Pedersen is here as well. So following our last board meeting, the high school administrative team met to discuss the attendance codes that we currently have for present but remote and made some minor changes. So we will still be allowing students to attend present but remote, but there are some slight changes to coding, and the high school will be sending communication to families regarding that in the coming weeks. But I'm going to ask Mr. Pedersen to speak to that a little bit more in detail.
Sure. It's just like Ms. Allaire said, it has to do with the coding sort of on the backside of Power School and how students are marked present or absent or present but remote. And there's just a little bit more detail to that coding, so parents get a sense of whether their child is present but remote and verified, or present but remote but not verified, or being marked in different ways. And then our system right now has automatic phone calls that go home. If students are absent, we are working on sort of adapting and changing those phone calls and how those phone calls go with the different codes that we are now going to start using once students are in. So really at the high school, parents have a better sense of, if their kids are supposed to be there in school and not showing up and just zooming in present but remote. It's a little bit finer detail that the parents can see and what the teachers are reporting in.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Cochran?
I'm just wondering, Mr. Peterson, if you could follow up and talk to and explain to the board how the present but remote option for attendance will allow parents to some extent be able to control the risk level for students by determining whether or not they're going to be in the building on a given time. So if a student is allowed to come back 5 days a week, PBR would allow them to be remotely at any given time, still benefit from the learning, and at the same time be compliant with our attendance practices, while still, as I say, giving parents the ability to determine the level of time in school for an individual child.
So since the start of the school year, all families at the secondary level have had the chance to be sort of present but remote, where if they were, they could be in the building if they chose to be in the building. If they wanted to be fully remote, they were fully remote, and we scheduled them in the classes that they were scheduled for with the teachers that they had. So that was established at the beginning of the year. And the present but remote is a designation where if a student is home for any reason, so maybe they're under quarantine, maybe they are, fully remote, maybe they are, sick in some other way, they broke their leg, whatever it may be, that student can still access that class, and they are designated as present but remote. So the teachers have a sort of per school board policy of different ways of accounting for that student. The student, if they are on the Zoom and being participating in class, obviously they are there. If the camera is off and the microphone is off, it's sometimes hard to tell if the student is there. But when the student, maybe submits or writes something in the chat, the teacher obviously knows that the student is there. Ideally, teachers would like to see kids, the cameras. They want to see those cameras on so they can see the facial expressions of the students, sort of read that body language from the students as best they can. They want to have those interactions with kids. So, we once again encourage kids to turn on those cameras and interact as fully as they can. But, we do understand there's circumstances that prevent that. So the present but remote allows students to still access all of their classes and access their education, even if it is through remote Zoom.
Mark, could I just add one clarifying piece of information? So the present but remote coding, for students whose parents opted into the district model, which is for in-person learning, shifting from 2 days a week to 4 days this week for seniors. And then we have that transitional, week by week. Next week, we'll be welcoming 11th graders. And then eventually moving towards 5 days on March 22nd. One of the changes is that if parents have opted for the district model where students intend to be in school, so present in the buildings, there will now be coding to account for students, for parents in pickup patrol, to mark their students present but remote, and it will be verified by a parent. So that will be different from the students who have a default present but remote because they're in the remote only cohort. So that's going to allow the high school to better track parents, their permission level for students to be at home accessing their education remotely. So it's just another layer of accountability, really, to better track attendance, but it does still, as Dr. Cochran said, provide that flexibility to families.
Okay, Jen?
No, I think Sandy answered my question. I was just wondering, so the parents now are going to be much like we would go in to say if our student was going to be late, if our student was going to be absent, we would be going in to say present but remote for, whatever. I'm just thinking, personally, I have some things coming up where I'm like, okay, I don't want to risk a close contact, having to quarantine. So I may choose to keep my kids home just to avoid that potential. And so
Yes.
then I would go in and mark them present but remote. So
That's accurate. Yes, that is accurate. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions on reopening updates? No? Okay, moving on. We've already talked about HVAC contracts. We're not doing that. Moving on to the food service annual review. This is an action.
Tim,
Barbara?
wrapping up on that. So these RFQs for the HVAC work, when's the turnaround? When would we think we would start seeing them actually doing work?
I don't know. If you read that executive summary, I don't know if there was a date within that. Mr. Dowd or Mr. Paradis, do you know?
The RFP date, the RFP itself will be open and reviewed on March 15th.
Okay.
All right.
So it could begin after that. Sarah?
Just really quick before we move on, I just wanted to say how excited I was when I saw the governor's announcement that teachers were going to be able to start receiving their vaccines in the next couple of weeks. With us moving forward, with having so many students and teachers back in the building, that was a genuine concern of mine. So I'm just so thrilled that that the state is going to be taking measures to keep our teachers safe and ensure that everybody has the best experience possible in school once we go back. So looking forward to our teachers getting vaccinated. That is for sure.
Great, thanks. Sheila? Yep.
Just to add to that, when I read the article regarding that, Sarah, that the state is going to be coordinating with districts, I believe it said. Anybody know anything in regards to that the state would be coordinating with districts to come in and do a mass vaccination in the district? Does anybody read that or know anything about that?
We were contacted back in October and we were told it would be provided information later. Mr. Peterson may be more on top of that, but I've heard nothing, and the superintendent's group really hasn't been informed in any way that I know of. So,
well, the only reason why I was asking is because I saw it basically in an article, and we have a PD day this month, I believe at the end of March. And I didn't know if it might be prudent to move that PD day, if necessary, to have the state come in to make it even more convenient for our teachers. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I mean, I don't think you can do that until they give some idea about how they're gonna roll this out for teachers.
I understand.
Yeah.
They can start signing up, I believe, on the 12th. Teachers. My age group is the 22nd of March. So I just didn't know whether.
I just, I don't know. I mean, I think it really depends on what vaccine too, because obviously some of them need the cold storage. It's a good idea, but I think once we know, maybe there'll be a better idea. I mean, maybe that's a good suggestion. I don't know.
I was just asking if anybody knew if they heard anything from the state. That's all. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Then moving on, food service annual contract review. We're in year 4 of 4, and we are required when we get to the 5th year to go out for bid on the contract. So right now we're looking to take action to approve the 4th year of the contract. This is a 1-year contract renewable for up to 5 years. We will need to create an RFP probably in the fall or at some point in time. Maria will probably be doing that and going out to bid, Last time we had 2 food service providers come in and we chose Whitson's. So I would anticipate we may have more than one person bid, but maybe not. So I'm looking for action to, Mr. Dow, can you help me here on the language? Engage Whitson's for year 4 of their contract or for the next calendar?
Yeah, for the fourth
extension of their contract.
I'll make the motion to engage Whitson's for the 4th extension of their contract for food services.
Is there a second?
Second.
Barbara seconds. Any discussion?
I think Whitson's did a good job with during the COVID pandemic with getting those lunches out and handing them out when the schools were closed. I think they've worked very well with us.
Thank you, Barbara. And John Fratello, our site manager, just does a phenomenal job both trying to meet our needs and work in this ever-changing USDA environment for that we find ourselves in because of the pandemic with different programming requirements. So he's just doing an excellent job. Thank you, though.
Maria?
Yeah, I also want to second that. He has been phenomenal to work with through all this. He has been extremely flexible, extremely responsive to all of the requirements that we have put on his plate. So I really want to bring that to you guys and let you know that he has been phenomenal.
Great, thank you. All right, so can we move to a vote on this?
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Muckmer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva,
Yes.
Sheila, you have a question?
In going with the food service contract, what year are we on the bus contract? Do we need to put that out also this year?
No, I believe that we will. I believe it'll be next year for the major contract.
Okay, thank you.
And just to stay on food service for 1 minute, and now I can't remember where I read this, but I'm quite certain we're looking at a shortfall of revenue in food service due to the lack of students. Currently we're at around 191,000, and that's anticipated. Sorry, my dog is having an issue. Anticipated to move up to almost $250,000 in deficit in that area. Just letting the board be aware of that. This is about $250,000 shortfall in revenue in food service. That's not any fault of Whitson's or anything. It's the number of students and the number of staff and what we're contracted for. So that's it on food service. Moving on, projected unencumbered funds. Last year, there was a request to project the unencumbered funds a little bit earlier in the calendar year so that we can make a decision as to what projects we would like to dedicate those funds to. I did ask Maria where we stand right now. There's over 300,000, but there's at least 120 encumbered. So we are looking at about 180,000 that is remaining. This would be capital funds. Clearly, that's going to go to any HVAC systems that we need to get funded here before the end of the calendar year. So that's the update on that. I don't think there's any need to take any, we can't really take action until we have a better handle as to what we need to replace. Okay, anything else on that? All right. I just want to bring policies forward real quick because the board, I want to move into a non-public session prior to talking about the SAU 106 staffing. There's some things that we need to talk about non-publicly before we come out and talk about staffing publicly. So Jen, we're looking for a second read on policies BDH, BIBA, and BID. And you're muted.
Oh, I said,
No,
yes,
you're not.
we are. Yes, we are looking for a second read. Yes.
She said with glee in her voice. Go ahead.
So if anybody would like to make that motion or has any questions, suggestions.
Does somebody want to make a motion? Could somebody please make a motion to do a second read? Thank you,
I'll
Sheila.
motion the second read for
BDH,
BIBA, and BID.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Ryan seconds. Any discussion?
Looks good.
All right, great. Kat, can you take a vote on this, please?
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mockamer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move off of policy, just a couple of quick things, if I might.
Sure, go ahead.
First, I know, I don't know, back in November, December, we were talking about SAU policies, making sure we had everything moved over. I think most board members probably got my email just highlighting the work that was done at policy committee and where we stand on that. There's not much left to look at. So I think that's in pretty good shape. Just a couple of minor follow-up things there. Policy committee this school year, I joked at the beginning, we did get through 47 policies so far and the year's not over. So I expect whoever's on that committee will continue that great work. Also wanted to mention, I guess I'll mention it now at this point instead of curriculum assessment, but I wanted to, and Sarah, where's Sarah on here? Yes,
Yep.
maybe she can help me. Just notice the board for next meeting of the intent to weave the summer work policy. It's policy IF, but to continue to encourage summer learning and maintain the AP course expectations while curriculum and assessment and the administrative team take a good look at that summer work procedure and what changes might come to that. I think everybody just felt after this year and this pandemic year that give the kids a break this summer while they regroup it and start fresh, but we would need the board to waive that policy in order to do that.
Okay, thank you. Kat,
So
can you
Sarah
just
and
make-
I won't be here, so just don't let
I
that
know,
fall
I
off
know.
the radar.
Kat, please make it, please.
We worked really hard on that motion, on that
Yeah,
recommendation.
I know. Please, yeah, please make a note so that Mrs. Belcher knows that that needs to happen on the next agenda. And I do want to thank Lee and Jen for their work on policy. It's been still work to be done, but you've made great progress. Plus,
Absolutely.
you've redone some of the SAU policies that we need to look at. So, all right. I think that's it for the. So what I'd like to do now is to, and I think board members, you have a link in your emails. We're going to enter a non-public session, then we're going to come back out and go into a public session. The only items left are the SAU staffing, which we'll hopefully take action on, and then administrators report and personnel report. So I'm looking for a motion to enter non-public 91A:3, paragraph 2, section C.
So made.
Second.
Okay. Kat, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mockmer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So board members, this meeting will stay open, but you'll need to go link into your others. I think the only people we need in this non-public is the superintendent and the board. Kat, if you want to join us and take the minutes, you can certainly do
We
that.
still need to leave this meeting.
Yes, we
It's gonna
need,
be left open, right? Yeah.
this
Yeah.
meeting
we
will be
got-
left open and then we'll come back. So we're all going to leave this meeting, go into another meeting, and then we'll come back. So this meeting will stay open.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mockmer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Kristen?
Yeah, so concerning the SAU 106 staffing, we still have some ongoing personnel matters that need to be addressed. So with regard to that, it's not something that we can move forward and discuss and continue to address tonight. So we will put that back on the agenda for 2 weeks from now so that we can address that.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Dr. Cochran, do you have any, there's a $500 donation, I think?
There are two.
Oh, okay.
And they are both from Health Trust. And so I would like the board to accept $500 donations from Health Trust, one for the high school wellness for the community, and one for Sandown North Wellness Program.
Okay, is there a motion to accept those two donations?
I don't think we need to because they're $500 or less, right?
Yeah. they're only-
Oh, that's right. It's fine. Thanks,
There you
Sheila. Yeah, okay, so we're good with those.
Okay,
Anything
thank
else?
you.
Yes, thank you to Health Trust. Much
Yes.
appreciated. Is there anything else, Dr. Cochran?
We have in the personnel report, we have a resignation from the middle school nurse, Bridget Sheehan.
We don't have that in our packets.
Yes, that just came out very recently.
Okay.
So that was forwarded by Ms. Belcher today. So she's resigning effective end of the school year.
Can we have that name again, Dr. Cochran?
Bridget, Bridget Sheehan, Sheehan.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Bridget Sheehan at the end of the school year.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, Kat, could you take a roll call, please?
Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes, and thank you for your work during this year.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes, and thank you for your service.
Mrs. Mockmer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to committee reports then. Jen, do you want to start with policy?
I feel like I already did my policy committee report.
We
pretty
kind of did.
much.
Okay.
Let's say
Well, I
that
can
total
move-
one more time.
47 policies to date through this current school year with more to come.
Okay, thank you. Barbara?
I think we covered all the energy
I
committee
think
stuff
we
already.
did. Sarah?
So Jen had already touched upon one topic that we discussed during CNA. The other thing that we discussed was an update to a couple of new units for the business and finance class. The teachers and administrators spend a lot of time pairing the documents up with the new NBEA proficiency levels and curriculum documents. There was a number of changes that were made, all very, very good. So much work went into it. So the CNA basically made a motion to accept the edits, but also move them forward to the school board for a first read. So I anticipate you'll be hearing from Sandy Sandy to get that onto an agenda so they can make that presentation. It's very exciting, the work that they did to really improve these units in this course. So I just wanted to let you guys know to be aware of that.
That was the personal money management class, Sarah, right?
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, thanks.
And this is Sarah's last meeting as well, right?
Yes, indeed.
Sarah, myself, and Lee.
Yes, so I would like to thank our departing board members. Sarah has been chairing curriculum, I think since you started, or by now in curriculum, and has helped us in other areas too.
Mm-hmm.
And Jen and Lee both served on policy. Jen served on the withdrawal committee, and we are almost there. So we thank you, and we'll look forward to our new board members coming on at the next meeting. And I think that's it. Does anybody else have anything, Sheila?
I just want a couple words from my partner in crime, Mr. Doobie. I don't think anybody realized just how much service Mr. Doobie does in this district. He started with the Sandown Budget Committee for the local town. Then he went to the district budget committee, I believe, for 2 terms. And now he's district school board. And in all that time, he's still coaching basketball and painting hallways and classrooms at TLC. So I'd like to thank Lee for all of his service, especially for the town, and wish him very well on leaving all of this craziness. And I wish him nothing but the best for him and his family.
Thank you, Sheila. I appreciate that.
Well, I guess, first of all, congratulations and thank you, Lee and Sarah. Special thanks to Jen. I will miss our little chats as you try to help me through certain things that I don't quite understand because I don't have students currently in the district. So I'm kind of like old school. My services, Jen, will always be available to you if you need someone to pick up your Christmas tree. But make no mistake about it, Jen, you've done an awesome job and you've served Atkinson very well in this capacity. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Brian. And my replacement will be able to help you navigate all things school related as well.
I'm counting on you.
Sarah, thank you very much.
I wanted to jump in on a couple of things if I could real quick, because I was not here at the last meeting. And as far as going on committees, I did want to thank again the Superintendent Search Committee. It was a great group of people, a lot of hours, a lot of good discussion, a lot of just a lot of time and effort put into a situation. And I want to congratulate Dr. Cochran for being the final choice in receiving the position. But I do want to thank all the members from the committee. They were great to work with. And every single one of them gave every ounce of effort that was asked of them. So again, thank you to all of them. So now I guess, Sarah, I'll move on to you. Again, I've known Sarah my entire life. We grew up, I grew up older than her. I hate to say that, but I was down the street from her. She was up the street from me, but I've known her for a very long time. We both have seniors. It's a very unique time right now for all of us. I do appreciate all the effort that you've put into this board. I know it's not easy. I know there were definitely challenging nights for you, and I appreciate you always sticking it out, being there, coming with a positive attitude and sticking to your convictions. I mean, that's, you listened to what people were telling you and approaching you with, and you stuck with it. So, whether everyone agreed with you or not, kudos to you for that. And I wish you all the best. I know you're looking forward to having some time to yourself and away from all of this. And I hope you can enjoy the next few months as you watch your son you know, enjoy the rest of his senior year along with mine and Jen's and Lee's daughter. It's a unique time for all of us. So, you know, I hope we'll be crossing paths, hopefully at some events, hopefully with the kids back in school, we'll be doing stuff and we can all celebrate our seniors and, you know, and what we've had here. So, but thank you very much for all of your time. And Jen, I won't miss you. I'm glad you're gone. It's your fault I'm here. I'll leave it at that one. And Lee was, you know, one of my son's soccer coaches, and my other son tormented him on the soccer field. So Lee, thank you very much. It was fun sitting beside you as well. So I wish all three of you the best of luck, and I'm extremely jealous, and hopefully I'll be joining you next year. So
one more year.
I love the idea that you you think that I could possibly have made you do something. That's like incredible. Thank you for that compliment, Kristen.
I was nice and content in my own little spot until you came crawling around. So leave it alone.
Thank you again to Jen and Sarah.
And they're not allowed to go.
Thank you.
Are they not allowed to appear in front of delegates for at least 6 months after they leave?
Yeah, that's right. There's a 1-year waiting period. All right. Well, thank you all, and have a good night. And I think we're all set.
Thank you,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Right.
Night.